Slightly before my teenage years, I developed a problem. I was in and out of hospital, 17 operations. I was told I wouldn't walk again properly, let alone be able to do sporting activities, especially things like running. I was going to be registered disabled at one point because it looked so hopeless. That was an incredibly challenging time. Definitely know what it's like to suffer myself, so I can relate to it with other beings, whether they be human or not.
It's not going to be easy. When you've been told you're not going to walk again, to be out there doing that's never going to be easy. And this is the one race that you have to pay insurance for repatriation if you die.
This is not a homogenised race that's constructed in order to make it nice.
It's scary, you know, you walk in there and you see people, you don't know if they're dead or alive.
I am trying to do something positive with my running. I'm not just out eyeing up a trophy or thinking I need to get my time down. I am doing this with a reason, and it isn't any of those things.
In the Sahara Desert, one of the most extreme races in the world takes place, Marathon des Sables, the Marathon of Sand. Traversing over 250 kilometers across sand dunes, mountain ranges, dry lakes, and abandoned villages of North Africa, Marathon des Sables is roughly the equivalent of 6 marathons back-to-back. Competitors are required to be self-sufficient, carrying all food and necessary equipment over the course of 6 days to reach the finish line. Available water is carefully rationed at checkpoints throughout the days, and nights are spent in open-air tent bivouacs along the route. With daytime temperatures reaching 50 degrees Celsius, the threat to human health is very real. In previous years, runners have died in their attempt to complete this grueling event. It has been called the toughest foot race on Earth. Fiona, how do you feel?
Bit overwhelmed, a bit surreal, really, yeah.
Well, you strike me as a very sort of unassuming, self-deprecating personality who appreciates your privacy and your anonymity. So I'm wondering what the experience was like for you to see your story writ large on such a gigantic screen with all of these people here.
Well, it's the first time I've seen it, as you know. It's kind of emotional, a bit painful sometimes. The desert bits are always just funny because I just know how ridiculous that whole concept of that race is. Yeah, because sometimes, like, did I do that or is it a dream? But I obviously did do it because it's up there, or unless it's photoshopped. But, yeah, it's just a complete whirlwind. I've done nothing special. I'm nothing special. I've literally...
Where does this self-deprecating nature come from?
I don't know. Actually, I truly believe it. I'm looking at the vastness of the problem I'm trying to address. I realise that I'm very insignificant, and it would be wrong for me to not stand by and do all that I can. But it never seems to be enough because, as I say, there's just so much more I want to do, so much more that needs doing. I haven't got time to sit back and congratulate myself because I've literally got nothing to congratulate myself over. Mm-hmm. You know, these are little battles. The war is not won, and that's how I feel.
Fiona, she's so pure, and she's just doing it like everything from her heart.
She's not defined by a physical condition. She doesn't define herself by her extraordinary running. She does this completely selflessly. For her, it's her passionate belief about veganism and about her animal sanctuary.
Part of what makes her so incredible is that she's just so humble.
Her life and her work with the animals, with her sanctuary, it drives her. It gives her a focus for her running.
For so many reasons, I want Fiona to succeed in her running and her advocacy.
I think sometimes people look at individuals like Fiona as like, oh, they're superhuman. Maybe she does have some genetic abilities that have helped her, but She's got an incredible amount of will, and she's a great example for what you can continue to do throughout a lifetime.
I'm interested in hearing a little bit more, learning a little bit more about how you think about the connection between running and the advocacy work that you do that's so important to you. How did that come about, and how do you sort of contemplate how the running serves your greater interests?
Well, yeah, I mean, I decided with the running that I don't want to do anything kind of 80%. It's got to be full on. Bearing in mind, the pivotal core of my life is 450 plus rescued animals that I care for. So if I'm going to do something, I'm detracting from the time I'm spending with them. I'm taking energy away from my body that I could be spending on them. So I've got to make it worthwhile. And the reason I just became very, very frustrated. Obviously, when we got the sanctuary back in 1996, I thought, okay, this is great, but it's addressing always the symptoms, not the cause. So I can take in like 400 animals. I could have 4,000 animals if I got the space. But what about the billions and billions of animals out there that I can do nothing to help physically? These animals are fine. The ones that I care for, they will always be fine. You know, they're obviously the predominant force in my life. But I wanted to do something to help those. The bad press and media that was especially given back in the 90s towards veganism, it was either maligned or just ignored. And I thought, well, you know, I've been vegan all these years since I was 6 years old. I'm not like unable to get off the settee or looking like I've been dug up from somewhere. I want to be able to do something to promote my lifestyle in a positive way. And I think people forget that at that time there wasn't social media. You'd got to kind of had to do something to justify getting any press. So I kind of thought, well, I haven't got any money and I'm not particularly good at anything. I'm sporty. And the reason I picked marathon running was that it was cheap. It was, again, you could do it at any time. You only needed a pair of running shoes. You could do it alone. And also, there was a kind of semi-ready-made platform in that Paula Radcliffe, back in the UK, was doing these flamboyantly good marathon times. So, obviously, there was a heightened interest in marathons in the UK at that time. And I thought, well, if I could kind of jump on the back of the publicity she's getting, that would kind of, it's familiarised people with the event. It's been billed as like, you know, the toughest kind of, this is plain road running, endurance event in the athletic calendar. So if I could kind of use that and do marathons fairly well, then that would be, free publicity for the sanctuary, because we don't spend anything on, we've got no budget for anything. It would get free advertising for the sanctuary, because when you win races, people say, you know, what do you do for a living? Oh, I've got, I run an animal sanctuary. I don't do it for a living, but I do run an animal sanctuary. And also, just really an opportunity to, people are interested in how you've won that race or how you've done well in it. You can say, by the way, I'm vegan. And that's the reason back in 2004, people don't know that we've got a big running club in the UK. I think Vegan Runners is now the biggest running club in the UK by membership. I started that with a guy called Peter Simpson back in 2004, because I was getting elite starts, I was getting offered places in races, asked to go and paid for. And he said, you know, obviously at the time I was running for Vegetarian Cycling and Athletics Club, because that was the only affiliated club that got anything in it relative to what I wanted to promote. But I said, well, yeah, for sure, I'll run for that club, but I'm a vegan, and I would like people to know that when I run past them or I beat them. I would like them to know that I'm vegan. And so it's a real hard job to affiliate a running club in the UK. I don't know what it's like in the States. But Peter did all the kind of paperwork and the legwork, and I did the running back then. And that's how Vegan Runners was started. And it was at a time like, you know, when you were going to the London Marathon, that's, you know, not the biggest in numbers. Berlin's the biggest in numbers, but major marathon in the UK, one of the 5 majors there were at the time. And you're on the elite start, you're setting off 45 minutes ahead of the elite men in the main race, and it was just basically an opportunity to run 26.2 miles through the streets of London, which are closed, with crowds everywhere, focusing on these few female runners, me being one of them, and the handle that they see on your vest is vegan. That's basically why I've done the running. I'm not interested in anything else but promoting that word.
But what's really interesting in your response what comes across, what I gather from that is a strong sense of self-belief. Like you'll say, oh, I'm nothing special, I'm not that talented, etc. But clearly there's a drive or a sense of purpose that is underscored by a belief in your ability to compete at a level that would be sufficient to get this kind of attention, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just literally was the runner that used to look and think, why are those runners up there and I'm back here? I want to be up there with them and I'll do what it takes to get there. I clocked that very quickly in like the London Marathon. I don't want to be running in a cage like for a 3-hour bracket on the green start. I want to be up there on the main start with the good runners, going in the bus with the other elite athletes and being out there with them, because that's the place that's going to get the attention.
And you felt like you belonged there?
No, not particularly. I still don't know. I've never felt I belong there. I've actually gone along to these races and thought, oh my Lord. When I'm actually walking to the start of the elite race in Berlin with Haile Gebrselassie, I'm literally checking out the opposition and thinking, that guy in the Superman suit, he looks quick. You know what I mean? I'm literally no confidence runner. And I'm all the way, I'm going to the start thinking, oh, I wish an excuse had come up that I didn't have to go. And it's a real weird thing with me, but I get on the start line and it's this Fiona goes. She leaves me and game on Fiona appears. And I'm willing, I couldn't hurt another living being, but I can certainly dish it out to myself.
She doesn't brag about anything she does, you know, she just gets on with it. But what she does is quite remarkable, really.
The beauty about Fiona is that she's taking care of, you know, hundreds of animals on her sanctuary, and then she's training and she's, you know, competing in these grueling events.
Fiona, she says, I'm not really a runner. Now, how can somebody that runs a 2:38 marathon call themselves not really a runner? I mean, she's not a runner, she's a really good runner. She's a really good runner.
It's kind of a funny story with the running. I don't like it. I lack talent. I lack ability. But probably the strength I've got is that I actually do recognise that. But I don't really know too much about running. I don't really care that much about running. I just care about the results I can get from the running. I have always felt quite embarrassed when I'm invited to these mega races and people are looking at me thinking, and you're, you know, what are you doing here kind of thing. And I know I don't look the same as everybody else. And when I tell people, you know, I've got like 8th place in the Amsterdam Marathon or like top 20 in London and Berlin and that Great North Run, and these are the biggest races in the world. These are not for messing around with. People are like flabbergasted.
Well, Keegan did a beautiful job of documenting the pageantry and the beauty and the sort of epic nature of doing MDS. But I think, you know, I've watched the movie a couple times, but what really struck me watching it this time, and what I think, at least to me, and I'm interested in your thoughts, seems to be the most difficult thing that you ever did was going from Atacama and suffering that injury and 5 days later running that marathon on Antarctica, not sure if you're even going to be able to run, to winning that and breaking that record. So how did you recover? Like, what was that like?
We went off to South America, and I have to say, if I'd have known what I was letting myself in for, I question whether I would have actually gone. It was so horrible. And I'm forever grateful that my mum actually went with me and witnessed it, because if she hadn't, I don't think she would have believed it.
The Atacama Volcano Marathon is extreme in a very different way to the ice marathons. It's one of the highest marathons in the world, so you start at 14,500 feet and you've only got 11% oxygen, so about half what you would have at sea level.
And I'd convinced myself that it wouldn't be too bad running a marathon at 14,000 feet altitude. I really hadn't given it that much thought.
Running at altitude, I think especially for someone who comes from sea level, is definitely a challenge.
It is very, very extreme. I think more extreme and potentially more risky than the ice marathons.
You've got to contest with the fact that you're running at altitude, but you're not kind of running, you are battling very, very bad terrain. About 28k, I rolled my knee on a stone or whatever it was, I don't know. I just rolled my knee and slipped. I knew I'd damaged it badly the minute I did it. I just thought, okay, I'm gonna have to walk, I'm gonna have to do what I've got to do to finish, and it's not gonna be pretty, and it really wasn't. If I'd have just been trying to do this for myself, I wouldn't have put myself through it, I have to say that, but I wasn't doing it for myself, so I did. And I remember laying in the back of this ambulance, 14,400 feet up the side of a volcano in the Atacama Desert, thinking, how the hell am I going to recover from this? The doctor has just told me that I am not going to run again this year. It was November the 14th. How the hell am I going to run in Antarctica in 5 days?
Yeah, I mean, it was really, really horrendous. I was having some angst with the race organiser, and he didn't want me to go to Antarctica, and so it was a brilliant opportunity. He'd actually organised the Atacama race. So it must have been Maya from heaven when he saw me. Literally, my mum saw me too. She was in a race car, just keel over with my knee. And when I got to the finish, I was very, very fortunate. One guy who was helping with the race, he saw what had happened, and he insisted, because he spoke the language out there, he actually insisted that the doctors give me IV pain relief. Because otherwise I don't know what would have happened. But literally it was just a complete disaster. I still don't know how I did that in Antarctica. I literally hobbled to the start. We went to Punta Arenas to wait to fly to Antarctica, and I had to walk around, sort of hobble around Punta Arenas looking to find a shop that sells those walking poles, because I thought, I'm going to have to walk. And I've even got these great big walking boots, and I thought, it's 2 laps. And I thought, well, if I start and I try to run and then I can't run and then I go to walking poles and just have to walk around, but it's bleak. I mean, you kind of forget. When you can run like, okay, it's 34, 35, 36 minutes for a 10K, you tend to think, how long's 10K going to take me? And then you start looking at your watch like in MDS and thinking, it's a cosy 2 hours. And you're thinking, oh my God, you know. So it takes a long time to walk 13 miles in Antarctica. And I started at the back of the race, and there was some Japanese guy, and he wasn't wearing a Santa suit, but he got one of those jokey Santa suits over the top of his running stuff. And even he kind of went off into the distance, and I'm kind of on my own thinking, oh Lord, you know, I'm going to have to, how long is this going to take? It's going to take like 10 hours or something at this pace. And I don't know, I just kind of got warmed up. The pain kind of left my body. I forgot about it. And I just thought, do what you can. And I really don't know where that run came from. I just, something on the start line. I'm just so blessed. I was in so much pain, and I remember being in Santiago, seeing other runners arrive to fly to Punta Arenas that hadn't been in the Atacama race, because I'd been the only fool that had decided to combine the two. So it's like, you know, I thought it was a really good idea, and I'd been told that loads of runners are doing both, Fiona, it would not be a problem, and like, I'm the only one. And I got this angst from the race director, who was making my life an absolute misery. And the thought of having to go down there and just not be able to finish the job that I'd started was pretty brutal. But the funny thing was that he put every obstacle in my way. And honestly, it was all worth it to see his face when it's like, oh my gosh, she's here again. The vegan runner woman coming, and she's going to win the race. Oh, you know. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't enjoy running. I know I'm no good at it. You know what I mean? I just want to get it over with quickly.
You're not going to give up on that story.
Well, it's true. It is absolutely and utterly true. I enjoy the fact that I can do it, because there are many people out there that can't. So that's kind of insulting to them. But I'm always in such a hurry with the running. I literally fitting it in. I mean, people don't know.
I think you're in a hurry in general.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like either at the fire brigade.
Right?
I'm a firefighter too,
yeah, I know.
And I do that in my spare time, just, you know, for a bit of income and a bit of diversion from what else I'm doing. So literally, I'll be 1 minute, I'll be bombing up the fire station in my nightie, and then, you know, driving a pump, been out for 4 hours, and I'm thinking, when am I going to fit my running in? So I literally am that person that is stomping around the house looking for the elusive socks that's gone missing, just to grab it and go. And then as soon as I get back, running stuff's off, and I'm just in another mode. Probably actually helps, because I don't actually get time to contemplate how awful it's going to be when I'm out there running.
There's stuff that needs to be done all the time. You know, animals to see to, there's medications to attend to, there's maintenance to do, there's a list of jobs as long as your arm. The thought of having to do all that work and then go out and run 20 miles. It's not even just like, oh, I'm just going to do a nice little country jog. It's appalling speed work to have to fit in, or an appalling 20-mile road run, and then come back, and as soon as you get back, to have to then start the evening jobs, which is like bringing all the horses in, getting the buckets ready. I just, no. Even though, you know, we've lived together 24 years, I have no idea how anybody can fit all that in.
Let's bring Keegan into this.
Yeah, don't get rid of me.
So, Keegan, this is a very interesting choice for your third movie. Your first two movies, Cowspiracy, What the Health, you know, you sort of established yourself as this provocateur in your collaboration with Kip Anderson. These are movies that crossed over to mainstream audiences and really created a lot of conversation around these ideas that you're passionate about. But this is a very different kind of movie. So why this movie? What struck you about Fiona? What compelled you to document her journey?
Yeah, so when Kip and I were doing a fundraising campaign for Cowspiracy, Martin, Fiona's partner, reached out, or maybe it was Fiona directly, and said, hey, we heard about the film, looks amazing, let us know what we can do to help out. And so I looked up who these people were, and I said, help us, you know, how can we help you? And the response that Kip and I got for Cowspiracy and What the Health was phenomenal, but I was constantly hearing this, yeah, well, I'm an athlete, I do X sort of training, and, you know, I could never be vegan. And I thought, that can't be true. There's people like Rich Roll, there's these ultra-endurance athletes who are breaking world records. We need to do more to promote that. And Fiona had been in the back of my mind for a long time. Then I spoke to one of our executive producers, Cheryl Greenberg, and she talked about how the vegan community is predominantly female, and yet women aren't really highlighted in the vegan movement. It's the male faces and the male names and the male organizer, heads of organizations that are really promoted. And that there needs to be more emphasis on promoting and elevating women in this movement because it is a female-dominated movement. I thought, hey, if we can combine those two things, promoting women, vegan women, breaking the stereotypes of veganism holds you back from any sort of athletic achievements, then you've got something powerful. And Fiona ticks all of those, and then being a hardcore ethical vegan on top of it, which speaks to my heart. So this is perfect. And also, you really couldn't ask for a better character for a documentary than Fiona.
I first met Fiona in 2014. She came into the shop and she was just this whirlwind, like she was absolutely mad as a box of frogs.
I'm not sure you can describe her in any other term. She is absolutely extraordinary. And what's really extraordinary about her is she doesn't look extraordinary.
I heard her resting heart rate's like 30 or something. It's so low that they're like, are you even alive?
She just doesn't seem to stop. I don't know how she does what she does. So she runs this animal sanctuary with 400 or so animals. She trains like maybe 100 miles a week. She's just so dedicated to what she does. And she doesn't do it for her, you know, and she does it for the animals and for other people, and you know, she's trying to promote sustainability.
When you first meet her, you've got no sense that you're talking to someone that's extraordinary. And one of the reasons is that she doesn't self-promote. She has no sense of actually how fantastic she is.
What's interesting about the movie, among many things, but what struck me, which I didn't notice it the first couple of times I watched the movie, is that you don't even hear the word vegan until you're 2/3 of the way into the film. Yeah. Was that a conscious decision?
Yeah, that's a conscious decision. If you watch any of the films that I've done, you don't hear the word vegan until 40. This is the earliest film that you hear is 43 minutes in. What the Health is like 47 minutes, and Cowspiracy is like an hour and 10 minutes in. You really, like what Fiona's done, you really have to pull people in to a story before you can introduce them to veganism, because people, they're so resistant to it. It seems so extreme to so many people, so you have to really kind of drag them along, get them interested. Why? Why did you run in a cow costume? Why am I interested in this movie? If it just says vegan, you're only going to appeal to mostly the vegans. So yeah, it was definitely a conscious effort.
So how much time did you spend with Fiona? What's the period of time that you guys hung out to do this?
Total, probably about a month and a half. 2 weeks in January 2017, 2 weeks in the Sahara Desert, or 10 days in the Sahara Desert, and then another 2 weeks, or not even, about a month total time over the course of a year.
And going into this, obviously, you're familiar with Fiona's story, and you have an idea of what you're getting involved in. What occurred that you didn't expect? Like, what did you find out about Fiona or this world, this subculture in which she lives and thrives that you were not originally aware of?
I really wasn't aware of how humble Fiona was. I knew that she was humble because of everything I'd seen and read, but I didn't realize that it was to this like heartfelt level, that it wasn't like a facade or like trying to put on, to be cute in a humble sort of way. This is very genuine. This is who this person is. I found that really refreshing. I think also for an audience too, that's amazing to see. There's a lot of huge egos in sports. And I love sports documentaries. I can watch a sports documentary about anything. I mean, literally, race car driver, boxers, soccer players, and I'm not into sports at all. But these stories were always people, they want to be the best in the world, but for what? It's like, so they can be the best in the world? There's nothing else other than that or a paycheck. And then to have somebody who strives to be the best simply to create a platform to talk about compassionate living, it's like, that's a documentary I want to see. So I really made this movie for myself, for that. And then again, that humbleness, that lack of ego, because it's selfless, was, I think, one of the most shocking things about making it.
Mm-hmm. I had spoken to the other runners, and there was almost like an overconfidence to them. Fiona was really refreshing because here she was touted as one of the elite runners, sharing with me in all honesty that she was terrified just as I was. And I looked at her and I'm like, how can you be terrified? So we're laying there in our cots, I'm just like staring up at the tent ceiling going, this is gonna be brutal. And she's like, yep, it's gonna be really hard. I came in like 6.5 hours later and she hugged me and she just said, I am so proud of you. And I was like, really? Like, you've been laying here for 6 hours waiting for me to finish. She's like, yeah, but I think you were the toughest. She's so incredibly strong and she kind of denies it in herself, but she's so willing to acknowledge it in others. Honestly, like I've never seen someone so strong and so humble.
You strike me as not only a deeply compassionate person, but somebody who has a vast reservoir of empathy and this sensitivity to suffering. And perhaps you were born this way. You can see it in every frame of film and the way that you interact with these animals that you care so deeply about. But I'm wondering if there's a relationship between the suffering that you endured as a result of your injury with your knee and the sort of process of recovering from that. Keegan, you sort of tip your hat to this point in the movie, but this connection between what you endured going through that and how you kind of empathize with the plight of these animals and their suffering.
She was always an athletic little girl until she had this terrible problem. In the early teens, she started having knee pain.
Slightly before my teenage years, I developed a problem with my knee. I was in all sorts of pain, all sorts of trouble with it. So I went into hospital continually having the back of my kneecap scraped off, having the ligaments and things readjusted around my kneecap to kind of pivot it in a different direction. And nothing was really working. That was my right leg that was affected to start with, and then because I was leaning so heavily on my left leg, that became weak and affected. So I was having all these surgeries. It was very, very frustrating. I think I had about 17 operations in all. I was not able to go to school. I was getting too weak to go to school. I couldn't mobilise around the school, couldn't do anything. There wasn't even offered any home tutoring. And then the doctor said, look, we've got a serious problem. There is a massive conglomeration behind your kneecap. It is turning it to jelly. It is crumbling inside and it needs to come out, and it needs to come out quickly. This is going to be a big operation and this is going to be very painful. I have to say I've never been in pain like I was in after that operation. I couldn't lay, I couldn't move in my bed. I couldn't literally alter my position in my bed. I was told I wouldn't walk again properly, let alone be able to do sporting activities, especially things like running, which were high impact. I was going to be registered disabled at one point because it looked so hopeless. So that was an incredibly challenging time for all the family, actually.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you learn from experience. That's the best way to learn. You can tell somebody something all the time. You can tell people, oh, that race is really hard, and they're probably looking at something with a bit of sand and a backpack. That can't be that hard, and 50-odd degree heat. But you learn from experience, so I do understand that what I went through as a teenager has obviously impacted me. But the important thing, it hasn't made me bitter. It's just made me focused on not allowing it, if I can, prevent it happening to anything or anyone else. Not in terms of that suffering. What happened to me, it wasn't anyone's fault, it was just something. But you learn, have an empathy for, yes, unnecessary suffering is just appalling. Any sort of pain of any sort of creature is just something you just wouldn't want to inflict. I don't know. I mean, it's really, really hard for me to sit here in front of an audience and have a film about me. In fact, when Keegan actually contacted me, I thought it was Martin winding me up. Literally.
We're trying to make you as uncomfortable as possible.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, why would anyone want to make a film about me? I mean, I'm just like eating, my soup.
I mean, you can't even run.
Yeah, no. I know. I see, I've admitted it now. I've finally got you to admit it.
You've convinced me.
Yeah. I can't. Yeah, I mean, okay. I can run physically. I can put one leg in front of the other. But, I'm not great. I'm very determined. And I've got doing it for a reason. I am doing it for a reason. And that reason is greater than, I've got my eye on winning that Garmin or a PB or a place. That's of no interest to me whatsoever. In fact, you go to these races and people start talking about all things running and UTMB points, and have you done that race, and have you done this race, and I haven't got a clue what they're talking about, and I'm thinking, go away. For me, running is about A to B as quickly as you can, getting the job done, and seeing if you can knock it on to help animals. That's another thing that I've done. I mean, I've had to really work hard for a CV that's actually made people sit up and, look at the results. I've got, like, in 2005, when I was coming back from Amsterdam with, like, 8th place and placing in the London Marathon and the Berlin Marathon, all the big races. I only used to do 2 marathons a year, and that was basically because it was economical, financially and physically. I didn't have to be away from the sanctuary. And I did this kind of speaking to this on a podcast today, and the lady said to me, I said, I've never even had a massage. I've no coach, I've no physio, I've never had a massage. I wouldn't know what one was if it hit me in the face. I've literally run in charity shop clothing, and obviously I've got my shoes now, and my shoes are very important to me because obviously I have to be careful with my knees. But I literally am Miss Cheap Amateur Runner gone mad. I literally am. And then all of a sudden, one minute you're running around the Dengie Peninsula with the only company as a squirrel that you might see, and next minute you're being chauffeured on this bus to these technical meetings with all these Kenyans and Ethiopians, and they've all got the coaches and the managers, and I've got my mum. We're sitting at the back like 2 school children playing noughts and crosses, and they're going, technically, what do you want to do in this race? And you're thinking, I just want to finish it alive, from get to A from B and successfully. So it is a really weird scenario that I've been going through, but and when you're amongst these people, you realise that you're actually not very good yourself. I mean, but you're there winging it and bluffing it and doing what you can for the animals. But I had no particular interest in going to the North Pole or doing any of that. I just thought, obviously, if people say, they feel tired, they say, I feel like I've run a marathon. And if they say, it's cold out there, it's like North Pole. So I've put the two together, and that's got to be definitive proof. Surely that a vegan can do anything. But and that's been the logic behind it. Can it be a win for the animals? Can I get something back in there? Introduce, because it's like creative activism that I've had to do. So if you're going to join the fire brigade, it's introducing, not at the time it was introducing females to a forum that not necessarily going to be in. I was the first female firefighter in our division, and then when it cropped up that I was vegan as well, you can see the hassle I got from the guys there. So but they had to think about it. They had to think about the fact that I wasn't going to wear leather fire boots, so they had to import them from Italy for me. So that kind of thing, just gently introducing kind of veganism and making, whether they're going to go vegan or not, they've got to be aware of it and respect it. And that's what my activism has kind of been about.
People listen to Fiona talk and they come to me afterwards and say, you must be very proud. I said, no, pride reflects onto me. I look at her in awe, and then the guilt kicks in. The guilt at having brought a life into the world that is so compassionate and feeling and loving that she has to push herself to these tremendous lengths to try to get a platform so that she can speak for those who have no voice.
Fiona, we were chatting a little bit before the film about sort of the current state of awareness and excitement around this movement. And as somebody who's been vegan and advocating in this space since you were 7 years old, what's your perspective on where the movement is now, and how do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really exploded. I mean, every day in the UK, something new comes up. Every time you turn on the media, it's the first thing you hear is vegan or something like that. It really has gone mad, and literally it's just growing and growing and growing. And I think people talk about the tipping point, and I think we surely are reaching it. And what I would like to emphasise, especially to younger people, is I think they forget a pre-social media time when this just wasn't available. When I say I went vegan at 6, I didn't just say to my mum, I want to go vegan. I didn't even know what vegan was. It was just an ethical choice. I knew that I wanted to opt out of certain things. And I couldn't put a name to it. It was more of a feeling that I had. But now, I mean, obviously it's growing. And I think, especially with young people, it's the youngsters that are actually realising this is not just... Vegan isn't just one-pronged. It's not just... It started with the animals for me, and I'm still learning as a vegan. Obviously, I didn't realise... I mean, Cowspiracy, what the health have taught me a lot. I just know my bit of veganism. But now it's just growing and growing and growing. And I think young people especially are realising this isn't just about animals and the health. It's about the health of the planet, the health of others that live on it, and the environment. And it's scary what's happening to the environment. And it's their future and their children's future, and they're taking hold with the initiative they've got and the inspiration they provide. It gives me hope, because at times I've been in a complete state of despair, hence the cow costume. Running, doing anything you've got to do. That's why I ended up at the North Pole in the desert, because what have you got to do to make people listen? But now there's a whole generation out there that can do that successfully, and that's massive.
Keegan, you had your own ultra experience trying to document this while the race was going on by yourself, right? It wasn't you and a crew of people. It was just you and very heavy camera equipment running yourself across the desert. And I'm left wondering, watching this, like, how did he do that? Like, where's Keegan sleeping? Where is he going? How is he charging his batteries? Like, how is all of this working? So walk us through that.
Yeah, I mean, logistically, it was definitely a challenge. Kip and I, my co-director for Cowspiracy and What the Health, have always done things super low budget and super low crew. People say, oh, where's your crew? And it's like, well, it would be just he and I. And since I solo directed this one, it was literally just me. I thankfully had a driver during Marathon des Sables, and about 50%, maybe a little bit less, of the course is accessible by vehicle. So we would drive along. He'd say, hey, this is where the course is. I'd jump out. I'd get a shot. But then the other half of the time, he'd say, okay, so you see that mountain range. Go over it and then go down to the next valley, cross the valley, and there will be the course. And so it would be literally carrying my gear, go over the mountain, get the shot, and then hike back over to get to the truck. Sleeping in a similar camp to Fiona's camp. There's a volunteer and staff tent area separate from the runners' tents. Eating one meal a day, bringing my own food because there's not really any offerings for vegans out there. But it was an awesome, epic adventure. I mean, I was doing half their distances.
Yeah. At times it was going quicker than we were.
Right.
To be honest with you.
Did you lose your toenails?
I thankfully did not.
You did, yeah.
But I did almost die making this movie. People ask all the time with Cowspiracy and What the Health, they say, it's a controversial film. It goes up against this big industry. Do you all get death threats? And oftentimes we kind of like joke it off, like, oh, yeah. But this movie, when we finished Marathon des Sables, I was exhausted. I'd been breathing in dust for the last 2 weeks, running, going as hard as I could, not really taking care of myself. And I flew to South Africa the next couple days afterwards to go speak at an event, and I contracted a horrible respiratory infection to the point that I had to be hospitalized and had a sustained fever of 110 plus for a number of days, hallucinating, didn't know who I was, didn't know where I was. So I got to do my own little adventure as well.
Right. Glad that happened after the experience, not before, right?
Me too.
So I want to make this interactive and open this up to participation and questions from the audience. Thank you. But before I do that, one last thing, Keegan. What do you like? What is it that you want the audience to take from Fiona's story and this movie that you've made?
I want everybody to feel inspired. I want people to see Fiona's challenges and everything she's accomplished, and despite all the hindrances that she's faced, both from physically, the fact that media doesn't want to give her the attention she deserves, on and on and on. I want people to see that and be inspired to do whatever their challenge is, whatever their marathon is, their marathon de sable, but to also be inspired to say, I have to do something bigger than myself, that a life of service has so much value and so much importance, and something that I think we really need in this world, and for our own selves as well, that we're having more fulfilling, meaningful lives when we do things for others versus just for ourselves. And then secondarily, I want everybody to say, vegan doesn't hold you back from anything. And in fact, it might make you better at what you want to do.
Beautifully put. All right, let's open this up. I'm just going to take this one right here at the top. This is a question for Fiona. Have you ever had conversations about your diet with other non-vegan athletes during your many races? And did they or anybody make the switch after talking with you?
Yeah, I have conversations with other runners. I mean, best way of answering them is not waste your breath, just go out and beat them. You know what I mean? Then you've answered all the questions. In the longer races, you do get more time to talk. And people there are always curious on how they can improve their performance. And if they see you doing better than them, they're interested in the diet. Because that was another thing about going after this activism and promotion of veganism through sport. You've kind of got a captive audience there that are interested in performance. They're interested in ways of improving their performance. So they want to know if you're better than them or perceived to be better than them. They'll ask how you got better than them. But yeah, it sounds kind of, I don't know, conceited to say it, but if you are actually just performing better than them, they're not so negative towards what you're doing. They might say, oh, you won't be able to sustain that long on a vegan diet. So, well, we're at it for 40 odd years. So, you know, I mean, how long? I'm going to be in my coffin before you finish, you know, that. But, you know, it is, I've had a lot of people, and in fact, the tent that I shared with there, they were a really good bunch of guys, weren't they? And none of them have gone full vegan, but a lot of, like, very proud telling me that I found vegan ice cream in Kuwait, Fiona, and if I come and stay with you at the new sanctuary, you know, I'm quite prepared to eat vegan for the whole week. So, you know, and one of the biggest wins is Elizabeth Barnes, who, the MDS runner, she was not been well since, for about a year. And she's switched vegan now. And she said she feels amazing. She's getting her miles back in her legs now, and she's hoping to go back to MDS next year. And she puts that definitely down to being plant-based.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. The next question has to do with balancing everything. How do you balance your running, the sanctuary, your relationship? I know you're always in a hurry, and maybe to kind of embark on answering that question, like take us through a day in the life from waking up in the morning to going to bed.
Well, we get up at 3:30 every morning, and then whatever needs doing, I do. It changes seasonally, obviously, because there's different jobs to do in the winter, because I've got a lot of large animals. We've got 76 horses. I've got 121 pigs. We've got 22 cows. So it's better to deal with those in the daylight hours. So if it's in the winter, I'll do more of the jobs that I can do indoors or in stables, and then I'll go out to do them. How I balance it is I literally don't stop all day. I have this 1 meal a day thing going on that, you know, everybody says I just eat 1 meal a day, and I get up in the morning and I work right through, and I just don't stop. I never sit down and never do anything but work. And it's I can't have recovery time. So, but my idea of a recovery time would be we have this food donation program from a big supermarket, Sainsbury, where they donate their bread and vegetables for the pigs to eat, but it has to be unwrapped. So if I've come back from a 20-mile run, the only opportunity I'm going to have to rest my legs is to sit in the middle of all these bags of bread and unwrap them. So that will be my recovery period, like an hour sitting unwrapping the bread. And then if I've got a bit of paperwork to do, that'll give me some recovery if I've been outside shoveling or whatever I'm doing. Balancing it is, it's not difficult for me because the animals always come first. The training is very secondary to running the sanctuary. And regarding my relationship, well, I don't know where that went. But, you know, I mean, I'll tell you now, Martin and I have been at that sanctuary now for 22 years and we've never been out together anywhere. In fact, Keegan took me out for a meal. Keegan and Shani took me out for a meal. I'm sitting there looking at this menu, so waddling my legs like, I don't know what this means. This is nonsensical to me. Because people do ask me, what do you eat? I don't literally eat pig food. I don't go to a farm, you know, distributor and say, can I have a bag of pig food, and open it and stick my head in it. But because we're on this donation programme, they give us their on-date vegetables. So I'm not going to be like sitting in the middle of my bread, unwrapping it in the vegetables and think, oh, I must go and fetch some bananas. That's going to take half an hour and like £5 in money. I will literally eat those bananas. And that's basically what I live on, the donated on-date vegetables. Pig food.
So last night, let me just clarify here. Last night at the restaurant,
oh, yeah.
That's the first time you've been to a restaurant since...
I can't even remember going to one before we got the sanctuary. So, I mean, it's like a definite 22 years.
22 years.
Yeah. Although
so
I have been...
there's not a lot of, like, Netflix and chill.
No, there is not a lot of Netflix
right?
and chill.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like...
No, going down to the pub and, like... So what do you do? Like, how do you relax?
Well, don't do I?
Yeah,
No.
do you can't just go all the time.
I'll tell you now, when I've been training for marathons, no word of a lie, the meal that I've had at night, I've had to have it in bed and I've fallen to sleep with it hanging out my mouth sometimes. Honestly, I'm that tired. But, you know, I get up the next morning, I recover, I go out, the animals need me. And the training is voluntary. I just want to give 100%. I'm not going to go out there and give 90% because that's just not worth going. The energy it takes to run well it's no point. I'm not out there recreationally. It's great if you are, but I'm not. So I'm doing it for a purpose. It's part of what I do with the sanctuary. It's part and parcel of me. So it's 100%, and that takes a lot of energy to give 100%. And that's fine. I'm not looking for people to feel sorry for me. It's my choice. Nobody's got a gun to my head. I want to do this. I want to do as much as I can before I die, because as I say, you're a long time dead. You can't come back. You can't, I don't want to look with regrets and think I should have done that, I should have done that. I've done the maximum I genuinely can. I don't think I could have done a lot more.
Where does this drive come from?
Drive comes from suffering. It's really strange, say a juxtaposition when I left to come here yesterday morning. I left the sanctuary. It's beautifully tranquil. The sun was just coming up in the dawn, and the cattle and the horses are grazing in these beautiful fields, not a care in the world. And I got in the car coming to Heathrow, and I saw a cattle transporter, a double loading one. And then I saw a sheep transporter, and it just wrecked me, because why aren't those animals having what my animals have got? Why do they have to suffer like that? And you feel so helpless at this hopeless situation that you're facing. That drives me. It's not right. Injustice drives me, and that's injustice in the extreme towards our fellow creatures. So yeah, I'm happy to do it. I always look back and think I'm blessed to be able to do it. And I will say that the years of immobility, I had about 6 years of immobility. I've got a funny shape for marathon running. I've got a very defined kind of upper body. I'm very strong in my upper body, and people say, "Oh, you do weights?" You know, no, I don't. I mean, I kind of lie and say, "Oh, yes, I do a bit of weight training." I haven't got a clue. And it's probably the years that I spent on crutches. I mean, my legs were in plaster for so many years. I don't, it sounds awful. I don't know how to say this. I'm a gross woman. I don't grow hairs on my legs. I'm completely bald on my legs because my legs were always in plaster. It killed the roots. And so it wasn't easy to be 13, 14, 15 and wanting to be outside, and literally going back to the hospital and being non-weight bearing and in a lot of pain. And I will say at this time, when I was introduced to hospital, that's when my mum was accused of child cruelty because the diet flagged up, and it was considered to be an eating disorder. I mean, veganism and eating disorder. But I get people write to me now and say the same thing, you know, doctors, health professionals saying, you know, it's not healthy. And, you know, even when I've come back from races, you know, and I've won them. A lady died on Everest, sadly, and BBC rang me and asked me for a quote. And I'm thinking, well, I don't know anything about it. I've been in Namibia. Anyway, I didn't know her, didn't you? No, she was a vegan. I said, well, I don't know every vegan on the planet. There aren't 6 of us in the world, and I knew her. Well, she died on Everest. Do you think that's because she was a vegan? And I said, no, I think it's because Everest is a very dangerous place to be, whether you're a vegan or not. And funnily enough, the guy that had helped me get through the race in the Atacama, Basti, he died on Everest, and he definitely wasn't a vegan, you know, so to speak. But people always say, you know, one child in Italy is found malnourished. She was a vegan. That's the reason. You know, they ignore all, you know, the children out there that are malnourished and, you know, obese and whatever. It's just got to be that one kid who's vegan, and then all vegans are the same. But it's that press are very, very quick still to jump on the negativity rather than the positivity. But that's what drives me. I don't care how tired I am. Because in that race, I will say, you know, it is hard. It's brutal. You're going along there. Oh, it's terrible. But at the end of the day, it can't be that terrible that you can just put your hand up and say, actually, I've had enough now. Can I go back to camp? And you can if you want. You're not going to because, you know, you desperately want to complete it and get the medal. But, you know, I know I'm reluctant to say I know what suffering is because I've always got options. Animals haven't got options. And that's what drives me. I know that. And I know that, it's pretty insignificant what I do, but I'm lucky to be able to do it.
I'm afraid to ask the next part of this question because I'm afraid your advice is not going to be good. The question is advice for dealing with injury.
Oh,
No,
no.
You're gonna.
No, I'm not.
Based on how you deal with injury.
Well, I tell you.
I'm not sure.
Well, I go out running sometimes and I feel so bad. I actually think I'm either going to get through this in one piece or I'm just going to drop dead. He has pushed me out the door to go on my long run on a Sunday and I've been crying. And I've contemplated seriously, we live opposite a bridle path, running up there, giving it all the faith and then going up there and just sitting down for 2 hours and then coming back and say, I've done it. But you never do. When you get out there, you know, you rise to... I wouldn't say I would run through... injuries. This that I've got with my knee, it's a manageable pain. I know how to deal with that. You know, I can deal with that. I wouldn't call that an injury. I wouldn't tell people to get out there and beast it till it hurts, and if it doesn't drop off, you're all right. I wouldn't say that. I'd probably do it myself, I have to say, but that's not what I would advise. I can give out great advice. I just don't take it. You know what I mean?
Clearly.
Yeah.
All right, next question. How do you start training for a race, and what would you recommend to somebody who wants to run their first marathon?
Just a road marathon. Just build up gradually and sustain it. You haven't got to be that fast to run. I was trying to explain to them, you haven't got to be that fast to run a sub 240 marathon. It's only just like 10 mile an hour or whatever. You just got to be able to sustain it for a long period of time. So I would say build up gradually and don't go into it all the time. Oh yeah, I can do 40 miles today because you're going to get injured. Don't do too much. Build up gradually. That's what I do with all my training. I'm not that flamboyantly good runner, but I can sustain it over a 10-week period. I can sustain a training program that's going to get me through 100 miles a week. And for me, the testament to the time you can run on race day is only a testament to the amount of training your body will allow you to do in when you're actually building up to the event. And that's the pure testament of a vegan diet, the recovery. You've got to be able to recover very quickly to run 2 sessions a day, hard sessions, and to keep doing it week in, week out. It's no good doing it 1 week and then being, you know, ripped apart and flat on your back the next. You've got to be able to do it very, very gradually. And don't overload, don't stress about times, just get familiar with the distance. My motto is if you don't train hard, you won't race hard. And I do have some weird training going on. Like if I run up to 20 miles, I never take water with me. I won't allow myself water. That's just, there were places I can get water along route, but I like to make it as hard as I can because it's sure as hell going to be hard on the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But consistency.
Yeah, consistency is all important. Right? Yeah. You know, managing the miles and doing the speed work if you want to run it. If you just want to get round a marathon, just become familiar with the mileage you've got to do. If you want to run a marathon quickly, you've got to do speed work and you've got to do hard speed work.
So you have this background in track cycling,
Yeah, I do.
right? Yeah. So that preceded the running.
Yeah.
I've never heard you talk about it, but you can see your bikes a couple times in the movie. Do you still ride? And how did that career inform your running career?
Yeah, I mean, cycling is very, very good exercise if you can't impact. That's why I took cycling. I've been cycling before my injuries, and I went back to cycling because it's just low impact and it's just straightforward, exercise that I could do quite easily. The reason I packed up with the cycling, and I've ridden all around the world bike racing, on the road and the track, is before bike racing became so popular. We didn't have much of a bike racing program in the UK till sort of early noughties. I just did cycling because it was something that I knew my body would probably allow me to do. And it did to a certain extent. The reason I packed it up was it's very time consuming. You've got to be out there 4 or 5 hours a day if you want to do well on the road. If you want to do well on the track, you've got to go to a track and train. There isn't one near me. There's not one for miles. It's expensive, the bikes, the equipment. It just wasn't for me. When we moved to the sanctuary, we didn't have a penny. We didn't have anything. And I said, I don't have the time. I just thought, an hour's running, 2 hours running a day, that's plenty. But, 4 hours in bike maintenance. But I don't bother riding my bike now. I tend to just train running. I could say I do, but I don't really do much cross-training. I just run.
Can we get you some help with the sanctuary?
Mentally,
can we get some people to help you out so you don't have to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning every day?
Yeah, I mean,
if we could, would you accept that help?
Yeah, if people wanted to come to the sanctuary and help out, if they wanted to come, they would be welcome to come and help. It's hard running a sanctuary because unless people are going to come regularly, they've got to familiarise themselves with the animals. I never wanted the sanctuary to become an institutional kind of place where you've got lots of animals and it's just, put that horse in number 23 stable and I'll be down very soon. It's a family. We are a family. And Keegan came and he said, do you know that horse? And of course I know them all by name. I know every nuance of every action they do, and I can walk down that yard and I can, he's probably waiting for me to come home and say something like, what's wrong with Angel? She's a big Frisian horse. And he said, I don't know, I hadn't noticed. And I know everything about just from the way they're standing, I can tell. It's got to be somebody that comes, that's willing to invest and learn like that. Because I think that running a sanctuary as I do, you've got to preempt problems. And that's what I like, prevention rather than cure for the animals. And it's also a very tranquil environment for them. I don't want lots of people coming in and upsetting them. And because a lot of them are very heavily traumatised. I mean, we've had everything at the sanctuary. I mean, it's very horrible to say. I probably shouldn't say it. Everything from dogs that have been raped heavily. We get all sorts coming there. It's not the pretty side of animal rescue, but it's the real side of it. I would welcome help. Obviously, I would welcome help if people wanted to come and spend time there, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is something I've talked to Jean Bauer about, specifically the fact that you have to come into this awareness that you're not going to be able to save all of these animals, that your heart is in the right place, you do the best that you can, you tend to these beings that are under your care, but also trying to find a way to make it sustainable, because just like your training, it's about consistency. And I fear, I see your schedule and I was like, how do you avoid burning out? How do you manage this gigantic load and shoulder this, for such a long period of time without something not just breaking down in you?
I think the thing that would break down is mentally. That's where you're vulnerable. Bodily, less so, mentally. But I am very, very mentally strong, and I've got a very firm reason of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And some people say to me, it must be easier for me because you're amongst the animals all the time, so you see the results or the rewards of what you're doing. And that is true to a certain extent. But on the other side of the coin, it's really heartbreaking because you see how individual certain animals are. For instance, I can never understand how people in people all over, certainly Western world, they seem to dote on their dogs and their cats, but they don't even have a thought for a pig or a sheep or a cow. It seems really strange. For instance, one night it was really, really hot and we got this massive load of watermelons that had been donated from Sainsbury. So I said, oh, let's take them over to the pigs, so watermelons and bananas, and give them a treat. So we went over there, and so there was all squeals of delight, and it was sun setting, and they were in their mud baths, and piggies ran out, and, you know, some wanted bananas, some wanted watermelons, some took watermelons, and they decided they wanted bananas, and they're all running around joyous, you know. And you're thinking, these are individual souls. It just shows that they do have preferences, desires. They feel very much as we feel. And that's what's very inspiring about that race, the Marathon des Sables. You could just take it as a tough race, so dinner party conversation. Look at this, I've got this medal, you know, I've done MDS. But you could take it as a life-changing experience. And when we're all stripped back, actually, to the bare essentials, like in the desert, if you're out there, you're running, and somebody offered you a big gold bar, for instance, something that you covet in Civvy Street, you'd say, no, thank you, it's too heavy to carry. So that kind of thing. And you realise that actually what is essential, whether you're human or non-human alike, is water, shelter and food, and not being in fear and pain. They're the really important things in life. The material things are nothing. They're nothing at all. They're the things that really, really matter. And that's the same for animals as well. And all animals deserve that. Not people come to the sanctuary and say, oh, aren't your animals lucky? And I say, no, they're just having what there is their right. They're being afforded their rights. There shouldn't be luck involved in it. It should be there for all animals, but it's only there for a few.
This next question is teed up for Keegan. Keegan, what is the biggest single issue facing the world today? Come on.
A lot of people won't like this one.
Yeah.
The biggest.
Oh, I think I know what you're going to say.
Yeah. The biggest issue facing the world today is humanity. That's the reality of it. The world has been, for 3 billion years, doing all right. It goes through all these different cycles. But we're in this largest mass extinction planet seen in 65 million years. And that's human caused. Too many of us wanting to live a Western lifestyle, that's a problem. It's a very solvable problem. We can abstain from having children, we can adopt a plant-based diet, and we can choose to voluntarily lower our standard of living. Everybody in the world can't live at the standard of living that we have in the West. And we've got to be realistic about that, and that we've got to lower our standard of living to meet the rest of the world so there is more equality. That's probably not the answer they wanted either, though.
I didn't have a desire for you to answer one way or the other, other than completely honestly, which you just did.
That's my style.
I have a quick question for you. The last time that we spoke on the podcast was on the cusp of What the Health coming out, and we haven't sort of reconvened since then. So I'm interested in what that experience has been like. Obviously, the response to that movie was extraordinary. I really think that it impacted culture in a very substantial way. And so how do you think about the impact that the movie has had, and how does that affect or not affect how you advocate on behalf of the things that are important to you?
Yeah, the response to What the Health has been phenomenal. I mean, it just totally blew me away, and I think for Kip Anderson as well, my co-director on that film, it's been amazing how people have received that film and digested it and implemented it into their own lives of changing their lifestyle, you know, whether going 100% vegan or just eliminating a lot of animal products from their diet. The backlash that film has gotten wasn't as surprising, to be honest. That we knew while making that film that there was going to be hard pushback to the information that's in the film, because it shines a light on a lot of things that a lot of people don't want to look at. The role that large chemical agriculture plays in our food, the role that the pharmaceutical industry plays in our healthcare, the role that the meat and dairy industry plays in health organizations. A lot of people don't want that talked about, and they don't want to hear it. So the negative response that the film got was a little bit more expected, but it's done a lot to promote the film, because people say, oh, have you heard about that BS film, What the Health? And no, I haven't. Let me go check that out.
Those guys are liars.
Yeah, they're liars.
There's a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
So how do you choose or choose not to engage in that conversation, whether it's online or in media?
Yeah, my response is always very simple. we make science-based films, fact-based films. Every single statistic, stat, and reference in the film is referenced on our website, whatthehealthfilm.com, cowspiracy.com as well. And there's a resource page that has literally every single source, so you can see the original studies. So you can look up and you can decide for yourself whether it's true or not. I'm not a scientist, I'm a journalist essentially, so I'm presenting the information that's available.
You guys all saw Cowspiracy and What the Health, yeah? Yeah. Is Kip here? I thought I saw Kip earlier.
He might have dipped out.
Yeah,
oh, there he is.
Oh, there he is. He's waving. So Kip Anderson is here. Give him a shout out as well. So we got to wrap this up. 2 questions. First, how and when can people who are listening to this or watching it on YouTube, how can they see the movie?
Yeah, so the film will be released shortly. We're working on some final legal things to get it out, but it will be released online hopefully by middle to end of September. It'll also be available for theatrical screenings and community organized screenings, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But the feeling is that when we get this vegan community behind a film, just like we saw with Cowspiracy and What the Health, it gives it legs way beyond any distributor. And then when we get the running world behind it, when we get the female athletics behind it, when we get everybody who lives their life with a mission behind it, then this film has the ability to get really out there into the world.
Yeah. Are you taking it on the road? Are you going to go visit the running communities and do screenings?
I'm exhausted, so no. I don't have Fiona's stamina. No, I'm already working on another movie. So
you mean this woman who can't even really run, who's sitting right here? Fiona, how can people? I mean, the portrayal of you in the movie and the work that you do, it's inspiring, and it demonstrates a level of dedication to a cause that we don't typically see in our lives. Like it's really incredible, the love and the dedication and the devotion that you have to the things that are important to you. And so when you see this movie, if people are listening to this, you'll know what I'm talking about. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who would like to support you, who would like to help you, who would like to lift you up. So for those people, where can they go? How can they help? How can they contribute?
We've got a website called towerhillstables.org, and they can get details on there about how to donate and things like that. But the main thing I want from my life, honestly, obviously I need security. I don't want any money from anyone in terms of, for me, it's everything we've ever had at the sanctuary goes directly to the animals. My partner is only just, when he took early retirement to actually stay at the sanctuary and look after the animals when I'm away a little bit more. The main thing people can do is, if they want to help financially, that's great, because I don't want money, but the vets and the feed merchants and everybody else do want vast sums of money to make this happen. The most thing is that they can be the best vegan they can be and go out there and promote veganism. And that's what my life is more about now, just making the world see what I can see. And if they want to help through the sanctuary, that's amazing.
And where can they go to do that?
It's at the main Tower Hill Stables page. There's a donate options. It's not just like donate money, but it's time and raise awareness and do little fundraisers and things like that. There's loads of things that people can do. It's not just necessarily send money. Obviously, money is fantastic, because I've constantly got people beating my doors to get money. Whether it's feed merchants, forage merchants. You're always listening on the television. We've had a bit of hot weather in the UK, and suddenly all forage is going to be short all winter, and it's going to be about £300 a bale of hay, and animals are going to have to be culled. So oh no, that's going to be a disaster. But through the website is the best place. And if anybody contacts me, I'm always there answering my mails, and they want to ask, can we do a little fundraiser for you? Or people do all sorts of things like cake bakes and sponsored silencers and name the teddy. Lots of things, that innovative ways, and just spread the word about the sanctuary, because there might be other people out there that want to help. That's the main thing that can do. I'm not that good at asking for things from people, to be honest with you.
That's why I'm asking for you.
Yeah, thank you.
And what kind of crazy world record are you chasing next?
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm doing the Atacama Crossing. I thought I'll just go back to the Atacama Desert and do a week stage race.
Why not?
Why not? And then after that, because I'll be in pretty good shape, probably break the world record for the fastest woman to run a marathon in my cow suit, because I can do that in the UK because it'll be the autumn and you get more interest. And then run a championship qualifying for London. So I've got to just run a sub-3 marathon. But that'll be quite good in a cow suit because it'll be quite a novelty thing. And then I go back to the Marathon des Sables next year. Hopefully with my new shoes and they don't fall to pieces on me, and I can actually hit it hard, or harder.
And if people want to check out your shoes, where can they?
They're at Will's Vegan Shoes. If you look at Will's Vegan Shoes, Will designed these after the terrible plight of what happened in the desert, and they are actually really, really good for trail running. They're really robust. I reckon I've got about 5 Marathon des Sables in these, so don't tell Martin, because I think I'm going back for the next 5 years. But yeah, these are really excellent. You can find them at Will's Vegan Shoes in the UK.
You can also find them on our website, the runningforgoodfilm.com. And the amazing thing about these shoes is that 30% of the sales goes directly to the sanctuary. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
that's a great way for people to spend.
That's it.
Yeah.
They're as far as I know, they're the world's first carbon neutral, sweatshop free, intentionally vegan trail running shoe. And then again, 30% of it goes to the animals directly.
Yeah. Fiona, you need to hire this guy as your publicist.
I made a whole movie about her.
I know, right? See? Look what he's done for you. Keegan, let's wrap this up with, can you talk about what's next for you and what you're working on?
Yeah, so I'm working on a new film called Hungry for Justice, which is a food justice documentary with my friend John Lewis, the badass vegan, who's a former guest on Ritual Podcast. And it follows John on this journey looking at the link between diet, disease, poverty, institutionalized racism, government corruption, and so much more. Because it's really John on this journey. He's originally from Ferguson, Missouri, which unfortunately has always been an impoverished and violent community. And he's seen the disease that's rampant there. And so he's looking to answer this question: why is it that Americans of color suffer from disproportionately higher rates of chronic disease, diabetes, heart disease, and cancer? And then once those people are diagnosed, why are they more likely to die from those diseases than Caucasian Americans? So it's a deep film looking at the role of institutionalized racism in medicine, the historical implication of the colonial diet, a Western diet that's been pushed on communities of color. But it does that through the lens of hip-hop. So we're interviewing and highlighting influential hip-hop artists and R&B artists who are plant-based or vegan or talk about food consciousness, because arguably hip-hop is the most influential art form in human history. What hip-hop artists wear, say, do, drive, eat, drink, and talk about influences the purchasing power of millions of people around the world. So when these people start talking about the importance of healthy eating, of veganism, of being conscious of what you put in your body, they have the ability to truly change this world. So it's shaping up to be a really powerful film. We're about halfway through shooting and hope to have that out probably this time next year. Trying to do a feature every year.
Yeah, awesome.
Can I, before you close it, I want to thank you so much, Rich, for all of your support of the film, for all of our films that we've done. You have been so generous with your time to be the narrator for the film, which I feel incredibly indebted to you for doing this event tonight. I think 98% of the people who are here would have shown up without a movie screening, just the fact that Rich Roll was doing it. And I really appreciate you all coming, but I feel it's so indebted to you for that. I'm so grateful to Chris Swan, to everybody at Sideshow who helped put on this event, to Jason. The fact that actually probably 80% of the people involved in making this movie, which is a very short list, are here tonight.
Can we give a shout out to Jason?
He's the composer for the film.
Jason, stand up. So this is Jason Camiolo. He is the audio engineer for the podcast, but he's also the composer of the music in the film tonight.
Which the score for the film is like the third character to me. It's Fiona, it's the desert, and then it's the music. To Amon Stewart, who did the animations, all the maps, he's an extremely talented. Big shout out to him.
Cool.
Sasha Perry, my co-editor, unfortunately had to dip out early. Jim Greenbaum, who's one of our executive producers, incredible guy. Greg Anzalone, who unfortunately can't be here tonight, incredible supporter, unbelievable, bent over backwards to promote this film. There's so many people, but again, I feel so thankful to you, Rich, for using your platform to highlight people's stories. You, again, give voice to so many people who don't have a larger voice, and I'm just deeply appreciative, and I think everybody else here who's a fan of the show is deeply appreciative for the work you do.
Well, I appreciate that, but thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to share a message as potent and powerful as the message that both of you are putting out in the world. So thank you for having a message and allowing me to share it. And I think that's it, man. We did it. How do you feel? Fiona, how you feel? You ready to go to a restaurant? It's past your bedtime, right?
Yeah, well, past my bedtime. I'm just relieved and grateful and thankful and humble. It's just surreal to me. That anybody would even want to come and spend time looking at this. It really is, you know.
Yeah, talking to the mic. Yes. All right, let's hear it for Fiona and for Keegan and for everybody who's here tonight who supported or helped create this beautiful movie. Support this movie, tell your friends, share it on social media, support independent cinema, and I am eager to do more live events, and hopefully I will be doing more of this kind of stuff. So I'll let you guys know, and I really appreciate everybody who came out tonight on a weeknight to spend some time with us. So thanks to all of you for coming.
Peace.
Peace. You say it. Take us out.
Plants.
We're done.